About 9 years ago, I put out the second episode of Cooper's Perspective, which was on the first Snowboard Kids. It's not a very good video. Then 5 years ago, I re-reviewed the game and also looked at the sequel, Snowboard Kids 2. That video was slightly better, but near the end of that review, I briefly talked about the third Snowboard Kids game, SBK Snowboard Kids, which were released on DS in 2005. I didn't look at it back then because I had no way of recording DS games, and I was also just not really interested because it didn't really have the same charm as the first two games. But earlier this year, I invested in getting a 3DS capture card, and figured, screw it, might as well tackle this game finally. In mini-review format, this game doesn't really deserve a full review breakdown. Part of the reason why I wasn't super fond of this game was just from the art style alone. The cutesy, chibi cartoon art style of the first two games was completely abandoned for a more standard anime look, pretty much modernizing the series. I get the original art style wasn't really for everyone and probably looked dated by 2005, but I still think this art style change was a huge mistake. The second issue I had with this game was the title. SBK's Snowboard Kids is just a really crap title. I get that they couldn't call it Snowboard Kids 3 because it's going in a much different direction compared to the first two games, but what the hell kind of lazy title is this? Hell, in Japan they called it Snowboard Kids Party. I think that title's fine, so why not just make that the universal name? Whatever, SBK was developed by a company called Inglove, rather than the people who made the first two games, Rectum/Rajin, though they are featured in the game's credits. It was released by Atlus in November 2005 for the US and Japan, and was published in Europe by Rising Star Games. The story's pretty simple. Basically, all the Snowboard Kids are participating in this World Tour Championship, with all of them having different motivations for joining it. Not much else to really add. You start out with 6 playable characters, but only 4 of them return from the first few games, which includes Slash, Nancy, Jam, and Tommy. Linda is nowhere to be seen, and I guess Wendy, Damien, and even Mr. Dog didn't get the World Championship invite. Also, I guess Shinobin just doesn't exist anymore. Instead, we get 2 new characters, Brad and Koyuki. But for the most part, I'm mainly stuck with Slash since he's been my main since the first game. The gameplay of SBK is your standard snowboarding game. No button to accelerate. You're mainly depending on slopes and momentum to win the race. Just like the first two games, you can pick between 3 different boards: Alpine, All-Around, and Freestyle. But I gotta be honest, I never noticed any major differences between the boards. At least not in this game. Like back in the first game, you always have to face the Alpine board forward, but the DS game doesn't really care if you flip it around or not. Plus, yeah, I guess the Alpine board has worse turning, but aside from that, I mainly just stuck to the All-Around board. There wasn't really much point to switch. This game also doesn't have any special boards, which kinda sucks, but whatever. The controls here are actually not that bad. Steering feels nice, and you could jump with B. The series trick system also returns, and I really like the way it works in SBK. You can perform tricks by simply jumping, and you can do flips by holding a certain direction on the D-pad. You can also grab the board by holding one of the face buttons. And since we're on the DS, they also included touchscreen tricks, which can be performed when you launch off certain ramps. You'll sometimes be prompted to tap certain shapes on the bottom screen, and if you do it fast enough, you'll perform a special trick that can earn you more points. Points are basically this game's equivalent to the coins in the first two games, which means if you rack up enough points, then you could go purchase stuff in the game's shop later. When it comes to the items, I'm a bit mixed on them. In the first two games, you could snowboard into these item shops, which could grant you an item as long as you had enough coins. There were also 2 different shops, one for shooting abilities and one for basic items. But in Snowboard Kids DS, the item shops were just made into these generic item boxes, making them something more akin to what you'd see in Mario Kart. This is honestly a pretty lame change. And instead of having 2 different item boxes for shooting and standard items, your character just has a shooting ability as default, while the item boxes just give you regular items. You can also level up your shooting ability by doing tricks, which can make the attack stronger. The characters only have 1 shooting item each, and they're all different ones that can range from being super effective or just really goddamn annoying. Slash has an electricity attack, Brad shoots a fireball, Nancy has the ice needle attack, Jam has a shockwave? Okay. Toyuki sends out a ninja star, and Tommy just has a rocket. Though Tommy's rocket can be really irritating, mainly because it has the same problem as the bomb item from the first two games. If you use a rocket but are still a little too close to the other character, then the explosion hurts you too, which can really slow you down. And if you're on the receiving end of the attack, it can really screw you over and just kill the race. Especially if you're trying to get the first place but Tommy's right behind you and just keeps getting a rocket attack over and over again. Yeah, it's a bit of of a double-edged sword having every character use a shooting ability that can also respawn. It's super annoying, and I honestly wish the shooting weapons were just regular items that everyone could use like in the first two games. But when it comes to the item boxes, you can pick up a turbo and nitro, which I guess are fine successors to the fan and rocket. There's the parachute, which can slow down any of the characters for a bit. There's the landmine, which can explode anyone who passes over it. There's even a wall item that just causes a whole ass wall to appear, which can briefly stop the racers in their tracks. Actually, the only real item to return from the first two games is the invisible item, which can protect you from oncoming attacks and really save my ass during a few races. Another item is the 100-ton weight, which can drop down and crush a character ahead of you. Sorta similar to the disc attack from the first two games, but it only crushes one character. Then there's the two items that utilize the DS microphone. First is the fog item, which can cause most of your screen to be whited out and block your view. It wears off after a few seconds, but the game actually prompts the player to literally blow into the microphone, which can make the fog go away a little faster. That's kinda neat. And the last item is the sleep item, which can make you fall asleep and lock your controls as a result. Again, it wears off after a few seconds, but the game still prompts the player to just shout into the DS microphone to wake him up. Yeah, imagine playing this game in public and your character gets put to sleep, so you just end up going, "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" When it comes to the graphics, the 3D does look pretty good on the DS, so it's fine on its own. The real issue is just the art style. The game's overall look and feel is just nowhere near as charming as the original N64 games, and the idea of this being a world tour kind of game also kind of makes it more generic, to be honest. All the levels feel a bit samey, even with them being based on different parts of the world. You end up going to places like San Francisco, France, Japan, the UK, China, Germany, New York, and Canada. I do love the selection of places, but not a whole lot really stuck out with these courses for me. They all look pretty nice, but that's kind of it. The character designs are easily the most controversial aspect of the game. I did get used to them after a while, but overall, I don't really see what the point of this change was. Like, yeah, they're modernized, but they just look so stock and generic now, which also makes the rest of the game suffer from this art change as well. There's no style or flair, it's just sterile and boring now. I will say, I didn't realize that Jam was meant to be black until I played this game, so there's that. Plus, it's a little strange seeing Tommy lose all the weight and change his overall outfit, though you do have an option to use his original green colors. The soundtrack is fine, nothing too memorable or awful, it's serviceable stuff. Though, just like the levels, not a single music track really stuck out to me or felt like Snowboard Kids. It's just okay. I should also point this out, but all the characters have new voices, when the majority of them were originally voiced by Lonnie Manella in the first two games. She doesn't voice anyone in SBK, but she is in the credits as the voice casting / director, which was a pretty nice surprise when I saw her name in the credits. It's cool that she was still involved with this game somehow. So the main single player mode is the World Tour Challenge, which has courses A, B, and C to play through. Course C is the starting one since it's for beginner players, and you unlock the other courses as you complete each one. All the courses can be pretty similar, but obviously getting a bit more difficult as you go up. Course C only has 8 stages, but Course B and especially Course A are a little longer, with Course A lasting 15 stages, and it even includes 3 boss fights. These fights involve chasing down a robot and shooting it with a snowball item that you can upgrade. It can be pretty difficult at first, but once you master the trick moves enough, you'll usually clear out these boss fights in the first few tries. When you beat all the courses, that's kind of it. The credits roll and you're basically done with the game. The other single player modes are Salam, where you can go perform tricks and stuff, and Boss Battle. However, you do have to go buy the last 2 bosses in the shop. The shop is basically where all the extra game time is going to be spent. Here you can buy skins for your characters, courses from the exhibition, 2 boss fights, board levels, customized board designs, and you can even buy some cheat codes. Not only that, but you can also unlock 3 other characters by beating them in the World Tour Challenge, and then you can buy them in the shop. The only character I was able to unlock was Max the Penguin, but the 2 other characters you can get are Jack Frost, the mascot of Atlas, and Black Frost. So I guess go unlock them if you're curious. The last piece of extra content is the versus multiplayer mode, which you can play with another friend who has a DS and a copy of the game. But there's also single card play if you only have 1 copy. It still works too, so that's pretty neat. All in all, I don't really have that much else to say about Snowboard Kids DS. I'll admit, I didn't end up hating it as much as I thought I would, but when coming off the first 2 games, I really wish this game was a bit more unique and wasn't so generic. It's a perfectly fine and kind of fun snowboarding game on DS, but it's a really bland and disappointing entry in the Snowboard Kids series. What also really doesn't help this game's reputation is this would end up being the last Snowboard Kids game, so a lot of people really hate it for basically killing the franchise. It's been nearly 20 years since this game, and Atlus doesn't appear to have any future plans for the series. Considering the first two games' cult statuses, I'm remaining hopeful that ports of Snowboard Kids 1 and 2 could still be possible, but I'm also pretty sure a full-blown Snowboard Kids 3 is never gonna happen. There is that fan concept by the channel Curiomatic, which I did bring up in my re-review. Unfortunately, this project hasn't had any major updates since 2021, though they did post a short about Snowboard Kids in 2023, so it's good to know that they're still somewhat working on the project. The way they updated the character designs while also staying true to the first two games' art styles is really impressive, and honestly, that's what the DS game should have done. Remain faithful, not just completely change everything. And if a new Snowboard Kids game or remaster was made using this fan concept's art style, I'd lose it. It would be so perfect. Who knows if or when we'll see the Snowboard Kids make a grand return, but the first two games will always remain these cult classics loved by many people, and the DS game will always be this generic snowboarding game that killed the franchise. I guess if you're really desperate for more Snowboard Kids content, go check it out if you love the first two games and just never got a chance to play this one. Go find a copy of it in the wild or just emulate it, I don't really care. If anyone at Atlus is somehow watching this video, please talk to someone higher up to get the first two games re-released somehow, be it an HD remaster or the N64 online app. Any way to get these games out there, they deserve more love. We really need an HD remaster of Snowboard Kids 1 and 2. Though I guess at this point in time, N64 Recomp will likely make PC ports of the games possible, so that's neat. Here's hoping these games get more recognition soon, but for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next review or mini review. Catch you later!